Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to episode 139 of NerdPod Generations. As always, I'm one of your illustrious hosts, Steve Taylor, along with the lovely Al Jetsam.
Hello, friends and enemies.
Hello, sir.
We're doing the Andy Samberg creep, the Lonely Island creep,
yes,
on episode 150. Do the creep.
The creep.
Just gonna do creeping up.
Very underrated because it's not at the level of Jack Sparrow or I'm on a boat, but it's still solid.
See, my favorite is still I Threw It on the Ground. That will still forever be my favorite awesome. Lonely Island song.
Yeah.
And video, because the video to go with it is also great.
It's pretty great.
Yeah.
It's pretty great. I have a soft spot. Even though I love I'm on a Boat, I think that's my favorite song. I have a soft spot for Jack Sparrow just because of Michael Bolton being so freaking nuts.
It gets so crazy by the end, too.
Oh, it's insane. When he's dressing like Aaron Brockovich and everything. Oh, my God. It's killer.
It gets out of hand.
But anyway, folks, tangent one out of the way early. My name is Steve Taylor once again. This is NerdPod Generations episode 139, meaning that there are 138 previous episodes of pure, unadulterated gold. So please go back and listen to our back catalog on either Apple Podcasts or Spotify. If you're having a hard time finding us, go to nerdpodgen, nerdpodgen.com, and there are links to our Spotify. There's links to YouTube, which we do have a YouTube channel, which Al graciously puts up clips of our show.
Hey, what can I say?
He's got a few of the past episodes, a lot of our DC.
We went through finally, and I put up all of the DC segments that we have done that are like full segments. I didn't do some of the lesser segments. Like I didn't put up my review of Batman and the Ninja Turtles, right? Because that was just me. I was the only one reviewing that. It wasn't like both of us in that segment. You reviewed it later, but the ones that are big, the ones that are important, they've gone up.
There's quite a few, so that was a Herculean effort.
I got 5 out of that. I got 5 juices out of that orange.
I was very impressed with that. So please, if you go to our website, and you go to Spotify, you go to YouTube, make sure you like and subscribe to our channels. And let us know what you think. There is a comment section on our webpage that takes you right to our email. So anything you say, we'll see it.
Yeah, let us know what you think, because honestly, that is that's going to be the moment for me. It's when someone reaches out and says, "Hey, you jackasses, why haven't you done blank?"
I would love that.
I would love it.
Because really, folks, we're at episode 139, and we haven't got a lot of feedback. We're going to keep going.
Oh, it's never going to end.
Unless somebody stops us, we're going to keep going, so you might as well let us talk about something you desperately want to hear about.
It depends on whether the heat death of the universe comes first or not, but as of right now, we'll
survive it.
Yeah.
I think
just throwing it out there, we're going to make it through.
All right, folks, we start every episode with what we've been watching, playing, reading. I figure I'll get it rolling because I got some meat.
Oh, really? Because
I got some meat on the bone.
Okay, yeah, you go ahead. I do have to just throw this out there because my ADD OCD is trying to drive me crazy.
What's that?
We were talking about Ryan Reynolds briefly before the show, and then we talked about Lonely Island.
Yeah.
And now all I can think is, you remember how Blake Lively was in the video for I Just Had Sex?
Yes!
My brain just keeps on putting that in. I was like,
so
listen,
weird.
You gotta stop.
That's so freaking weird. Okay, so I got a lot to talk about.
Yes, you do.
First thing I'm going to bring up, it's kind of brief. I've been trying to it's very hard for me to play some video games at all because I have no time. Finally, I've gotten back on, there's a game that I've been wanting to play. It's been on my backlog. It's called Sea of Stars. For those of you who have not heard of it, it's an independent game. It's kind of in the vein of an old school Dragon Quest or a Final Fantasy.
Okay.
But it's not, it's in the realm of what the pixel art games used to look like, but it's not pixel art.
Okay.
It's a lot cleaner. And it's beautiful, and it's really inventive, and I'm thoroughly enjoying it.
Nice.
So, Sea of Stars, I'm playing it. I believe it's on every console. I'm playing it on Switch, of course, because a game like that, to me, just belongs handheld. So, to me, that's Sea of Stars. Quick little on that one. Moving on, MCU, Journey with My Son.
The GROAN. Segment
This
GROAN.
was an interesting one.
You gotta tell me, because I've seen Antman and the Wasp once, and that was enough for me.
That's why.
Yeah.
I had only seen Antman and the Wasp once, and I believe I fell asleep halfway through it.
I just got to the drumming ant at the end, and I was like, so this was a full waste of my time.
Yeah, it's like that's how you're going to
play
off the snap. Is all the world is collapsing, but the ant is playing
There's just
drums.
an ant drumming,
That was
and
dumb.
I hate it. And we're going to get into the Wasp.
So the interesting thing about this movie, of all the MCU movies, this was a total throwaway.
Yeah.
Because this whole movie is only exists for one scene, and it is the first post-credit scene.
First post-credit scene.
That's the whole reason for that movie.
The entire movie is just to show you that Scott is trapped, and all the rest of his crew are gone.
Yes.
And that's it. That's the entirety of what this movie is for.
Because, spoilers, the fact that he's trapped in the quantum realm is what helps Endgame happen.
Yeah.
And so that's but like the whole movie itself is like,
I do like,
it's okay.
At the time I laughed at it, and now I kind of look at it and say, at least you know where you're actually standing.
Yes.
I think the move to have the MCU proper be saved because of a rat. The MCU proper is saved because of a rat. I think that's appropriate for this level of content.
But then also, I guess because I didn't remember this movie, all of the negatives I gave Quantumania about really going hard on the removing the helmets every time you do anything, this movie dove deep into that. Anytime they went from shrunk to big, they would take their helmets off.
This is what I'm saying. This is what I'm saying. In the first one, going back a few episodes, I was complaining about how in the Deadpool and Wolverine trailer, you have an Antman helmet. And what is a giant Antman helmet? What do I do with this? This doesn't make any sense because Giant Man doesn't have a helmet. Only Antman has a helmet because he needs it to communicate with ants. So a Giant Man helmet, by its nature, usually would be ineffective and stupid. Except in the MCU, they set up this idea where you have to have this enclosed suit because if you're exposed to the Pym particles in any way, they can dramatically change your brain chemistry, which they never actually use for anything.
Yeah.
Even though that could have been the perfect lead up to the actual Yellow Jacket being Hank Pym and not Daryl Strong or whatever the fuck his name is. Darren Cross.
Darren Cross, there you go.
I gotta show that I do know the name. I gotta know that I have to show that I know the name by saying the wrong name and then saying the right name.
We know the name. We just don't give a shit.
I don't care. Here's my thing. I don't care.
Hey, you can just call him MODOK now.
Right? But even then, I'm still like, but you're not MODOK.
You're not MODOK.
You're not MODOK. You keep on parading around like you're different characters and you're none of them. You're just like, I'm Yellow Jacket. You're not Yellow Jacket.
Not Yellow Jacket.
I'm MODOK. You're really not.
Yeah,
I cannot emphasize
not even
enough.
a little bit.
Anyway, if you're going to establish this idea that you have to be in this encased system, this enclosed system, in order to use the Pym particles, why can Scott just shrink in between sizes without it being an issue? Why is he the size of a 6-year-old now? Why is this a thing?
That was weird.
What's going on?
Like, that's Marvel saying, oh, you know what would be funny?
Yeah.
Oh, well, that doesn't fit anything.
It doesn't make any sense within the context of the canon.
It doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
Because it's funny.
Yeah.
They can say, oh, do you want a juice box? When he gets in the car, you can get Michael Douglas, Oscar winner Michael Douglas, to say stupid lines like, do you want a juice box and fruit snacks? And him say, oh, do you have them?
Yeah.
It was so bad.
It's,
the thing that really pissed me off about this movie, though.
The building shrinking into a suitcase, even though it's an entire building
full
of
just
presumably
dumb.
people.
That didn't make me mad. That was just dumb.
That just makes me
there was no people in the building.
Well, then why do you have an entire building,
I
Pym,
don't understand
in San Francisco? Why do you have an entire building in San Francisco, Pym?
I don't understand that. You have Lawrence Fishburne as Goliath.
Which I like him as Bill Foster until the turn. Where it's like it turns out he's the reason Ghost is the way that she is.
Yes.
And I'm like, what the fuck is this shit?
But you have a situation where it's like, okay, so you were saying this guy used to be Goliath.
Yeah.
He used to grow.
Yeah.
He is jealous of the fact that the new technology, Scott can grow much bigger than he ever did. At the end, you have a situation where they're trying to evade the police. And what do? They just grow an empty suit and let it collapse on itself, where it's like, this was your opportunity to put Lawrence Fishburne in the fucking suit and have Goliath be fucking Goliath. And I'm like, why would you not do that?
Also, if you're going to retcon it so that Goliath was around back in the 80s, which I like in concept, then why the fuck don't Rhodey and Iron Man know what Goliath is when he becomes Giant Man at the airport? They should know something. Goliath worked for S.H.I.E.L.D.
Yeah.
Even if Tony doesn't know, Rhodey should know something.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I get the U.S. government not trusting Iron Man with actual secrets, but Rhodey? You're not going to trust Rhodey with these kind of things?
But what you were just saying, in Avengers, Tony Stark hacked into all of S.H.I.E.L.D.'s files. And you telling me won't notice that there was a guy that grew to 35 feet or whatever Bill Foster said he grew to?
And then you have Black Widow releases all of S.H.I.E.L.D.'s files online.
Yeah.
And still, no one
knows.
No one thinks about this.
No one fucking knows.
And it's just like, what the fuck? This is always my issue with the MCU, is that they keep on playing it like people don't know superheroes exist. You can't. Your canon dictates that it can't be played that people don't know about superheroes. That's ridiculous and asinine. Captain America's been around since the fucking 1940s, and God willing, he has a statue at Liberty Island. Yeah. So, like, what the fuck are we doing, guys?
And maybe you can get away with saying no one knows Antman or the Wasp ever existed because they're tiny.
Well, and they're secret agents.
And they're secret agents.
Goliath
is fucking 35 feet tall.
That's his whole thing.
He's fucking Godzilla.
What are you talking about? Nobody saw him. Nobody noticed him ever.
I don't get that.
I
really like that. That bothered me so much. It's like, because you're right. It's like I love the casting.
Yeah,
Lawrence
it's great
Fishburne
casting.
was perfect.
I love the moment when he and Scott are talking about notes.
Yes.
When they go and meet him for the first time. And I'm like, Bill Foster, fucking Bill Foster. Because I'm sitting here like, I sat through all of Civil War, not a mention of Bill Foster. All right? Now, we didn't have Mechanathor and all these other... Like, okay, fine. We don't need Bill Foster to die here for a bunch of different reasons. But, like, there's no mention of him.
Nope.
Anybody who doesn't know, Bill Foster is an enormous element of Civil War. He's arguably one of... no pun intended, the biggest things that happens in Civil War is the death of Bill Foster. No mentions, nothing, gone, not even on the table. It's like, what the fuck?
Well, we know they fucked up Civil War so bad. So, I mean, that's a given.
That's true.
That's an absolute given.
All the canon is gone.
Yeah.
All the canon is gone, and
destroyed.
it just makes me crazy.
But it's like, and this is something we've also talked about with the MCU, is missed opportunities to where they do introduce a character that you're like, and then they completely blow it. Yeah. And you're like...
Or they introduce...
even Ghost.
I was about to say.
I didn't... Now, here's the thing. The way it started, I felt, okay, maybe this is going somewhere good, and then it just didn't.
Well, and, like, my thing is... Ghost presents something that I've wanted in a long time. You take a superhero and a supervillain. They do not have the same power sets. So now you have two different power sets fighting each other. How do those power sets play off each other? Because that's what we actually want when we come to superhero stuff. We don't want Iron Man to be fighting various versions of Iron Man. That's fucking boring and stupid.
We don't want Whiplash in an Iron Man suit.
What we want is two guys with extremely different power sets fighting so that there's a level of, I have to come up with a solution. I have to think on the fly. I've been watching Batman Beyond. One of the things that they do great is their use of civilians. And the way that civilians play a role within the body of that show. None of that shows up in the MCU on a regular, informative basis.
Yes.
And then when we do get it here with Ghost, it's okay, but it's Scott, so it's not going to be like these amazing fight scenes. And you still have Hope. I'm still angry that it's not Jan, but fine. You have Hope. At least there's a Wasp. She doesn't play an actual role in any of the fight scenes in a meaningful way, even though she's shown to be a better fighter than Scott.
1,000 times.
And so you just have
the scene where she's fighting Walter Goggins' men when he's first introduced. She's like Captain America the way she's fighting them.
I'm sitting here like, where has this been? Because this is the Wasp that I know, is this Wasp that is funny and charming and incredibly effective in combat because nobody expects anything out of her. And so we get there, we almost get there with Hope, but she doesn't actually have anything meaningful in the entire movie, which they do again in Quantumania, where again, she has nothing meaningful to do in the entire movie. Even though this movie's called Antman and the Wasp. Yeah. It's still mostly Antman and then also kind of the Wasp. But then on top of everything else, you give Jan, the real Jan, quote-unquote real Jan, these bullshit quantum powers, and she heals Ghost so that Ghost doesn't have her powers anymore.
Stupid.
And I'm just like, what the fuck is this? Yeah. What the fuck is this? What are we doing?
I'm going to touch your head with my glowy fingers and everything.
What is this quantum power that she has? What is this bullshit garbage? Like, I've seen a lot of Deus Ex Machinas in my life. Invincible Season 2 had some world-class Deus Ex Machinas.
Yeah, absolutely.
This is some bullshit. This is garbage.
And then you're taking, once again, like Marvel likes to do. Now, they didn't kill the villain in this movie.
No, but they removed her from any possibility of being a factor moving forward.
I mean, right now she's just another Black Widow.
And it's not even like Ghost in the comics where it's a suit, where the power comes from the suit. Yes. she had her power come from the quantum realm.
Yeah, the suit was used to control the power.
And it's just like, what is this bullshit? You can't even recreate it and have Ghost 2 or something later on. Yeah. Now Ghost just doesn't exist in this universe. Yeah. And it's like, what the fuck are we doing?
Because there's two things Marvel does not know how to handle. Women or villains. They fucked them both up.
And when you have a woman villain,
oh my god,
Lord help you.
That's just a nightmare.
I don't know what to do.
So that was that. We're gonna move on to Endgame next with my son, and I'm not looking forward to it.
Good luck.
I'm cringing right now. I can honestly right now thinking to Endgame, the only scene that I still like is when Bruce Banner and the Ancient One have their little conversation. I really enjoyed that scene. That's the only thing I have a positive memory of the whole movie.
I like the last fight and everything else about that movie. I'm like, so you decided to pitch for nostalgia?
Yeah.
You're just going to do a let's walk down memory lane of the Marvel Universe? But that's your entire plan?
That's their entire plan. And like that, even that last fight, it was just too much.
See, I like it because it should have been that much. It needed to be that much. It needed to be that far over the top. After everything that's happened and after all these movies, it needed to be a 40-minute fight sequence that shows everybody getting their hands on the ball.
That's true.
So I'm happy with that. And honestly, that's the moment where, like, if you just stop watching Infinity War at the end and then you skip right to the fight, I feel like that might be the meta for watching the two movies. Is just fully skip all of Endgame until you get to the fight.
They would never have had that line, "That's America's ass." So just remember, that is the whole movie for some executives.
You know,
one executive was like, "Oh my god, it's the funniest line in the movie."
I think that's actually true because Lego made an Avengers set and it comes with 2 Captain Americas, so you can have Captain America looking at Captain America's ass. And I'm just like, why? But why? There's so many other characters that I would rather have as a minifigure than 2 Captain Americas. So I can have one Captain America looking at the other Captain America's ass.
You just gave me a brain in here.
What's the point of this exactly? Like when the Daily Bugle didn't come with a Mary Jane Watson, I was like, okay, you know, it's weird that it comes with Blade, but it's like not the weirdest thing ever. I've seen weirder. This seems unnecessary to have 2 of the exact same figure, the exact same one. I don't know about that one.
Now is the hurtful time.
Buckle in, kids.
So we're going to move on to the first 2 episodes of this new season of Doctor Who.
New Who.
A little bit of a rough start with the whole special Christmas episode, The Church on Ruby Road. A lot of mixed feelings about that.
Now, this is not the Toy Maker episode, right? This is a different, the Game Master, whatever that one.
Yeah, no, that was the final episode with Tennant,
So there's actually a full Christmas special after that.
Yeah, the Church on Ruby Road is where you get the full introduction to the new Doctor by himself without David Tennant there. You get the backstory of his companion, who is Ruby Sunday, I believe is her last name, which I still have a hard time believing that's her last name, but Ruby.
That's Sunday. Is this James Bond?
It's dumb.
Pussy galore.
So there was a lot of negatives. I'm not going to get into the Church of Ruby Road because that was the Christmas episode. I'm going to just go on to the first official 2. So it started with a whimper.
Okay.
First episode is called Space Babies.
Oh, good.
And they literally get to this space station that there are babies in like kind of like remember WALL-E, the humans that are in like the chairs?
Yeah.
These are like babies in chairs like that, and so their thoughts, like they can actually speak because they're not aging.
Oh.
And at first there's like no adults, and long story short, it gets to the point where the thing they have to solve to save the babies and the station is there is a mucus monster that's grown in the same way the babies were grown, and the babies think it's the boogeyman. And the Doctor and Ruby have to stop this mucus monster.
This feels belittling. I'm not gonna lie.
This is a new trend that was started in this episode, and it goes into the next one too. The Doctor has been around now for 60 fucking years. Mm-hmm. So if I have no problem if you change their appearance, you change their sex.
Yeah.
Don't give a shit.
Yeah.
The Doctor, whenever the Doctor is met, a new creature, being that he's never seen before, he's curious.
He's thrilled.
the Doctor in these two first episodes has run for both of them. And I'm like, as soon as he ran from the Mucus Monster, I'm like, what the fuck is he doing?
Did he not, like, study it at all?
And here's the thing, though. He mentions the fact that he found it odd. In the second episode, he mentions the fact that he found it odd that he ran from the monster in the first one. And what does he do to fix it? He runs from the monster in the second one. But it's like, I'm watching this and it's like, okay, this is my problem. First off, the story sucked. Like, it was
It's pretty bad.
It was a dumb fucking story.
As far as synopsis goes, that's pretty bad.
Yeah. It's like...
It's hard to have an elevator pitch where that sounds good.
No, it was really fucking stupid. But then you have this new Doctor, which his initial introduction went well when you introduced him with David Tennant, even though a lot of people were pissed that they got split and it's two Doctors.
I didn't mind that. That was fine.
No, and he was super charming and debonair and all that. I'm like, okay,
yeah,
I'm on board with this.
If anything, that's a critique on the fact that we've gone soft on David Tennant for giving him a happy ending.
Yes.
Doctor Who doesn't get a happy ending.
He never gets a happy. And that is, once again, that's the thing I'm having a hard time with. And you have Russell T Davies, who everyone, including me, was like, oh, this is the guy that resurrected Doctor Who with Christopher Eccleston, and I can't wait to see what he's going to do. He's completely changing this character. It's like saying Wolverine doesn't have claws, he has a tail that's sharp at the end now. It's like, no, that's not... Like, you got to be more creative. If, like, they've been able to do it, where the Doctors are quirky in different ways. Even Jodie Whittaker, she still didn't run.
No.
But she was completely different in a lot of ways, and she didn't run from the fucking bad guys, because that's not who the Doctor is. The Doctor has been alive for so fucking long and seen so many things that they are not afraid of anything.
Well, and like the reason they run is because it's a tactical reason. It's not out of fear. It's they look at the situation if they ever run and they say, well, I can't do anything here, and if we stay, my companions are going to die.
And that's
so
the main thing right there.
I have to take my companions and get them out of here.
But like in this one, he's running ahead of the companion.
No, you run with the companion.
And it's like, what are you fucking doing?
No, you run. You hold hands and you run together. We know this.
So like this, like it really pissed me off.
Yeah, well,
like,
I guess
I was fucking pissed.
I was about to say, because this sounds to me like my complaints, not to take it here, about Homecoming. You have a Spider-Man story without any web swinging and without spider sense. Why is this called a Spider-Man story? This is clearly just a pastiche on Spider-Man.
There was a lot of... I'm going to say this right now. This new series of Doctor Who, my wife has agreed with me on this. Everyone who had any issues with Peter Capaldi's Doctor is going to think a lot different about his episodes now, because now they're going to be like, oh, fuck, that was the last, like, true Doctor, because even the Jodie Whittaker, which once again was not her fault, it was a terrible showrunner, they got away from what made the Doctor in the first season, and then they tried to bring it back, but it was a little too late. It's like Sonic Screwdriver. When he had Sonic sunglasses in that one season,
makes me so
it
angry.
was dumb, but now it's like a flat Sonic
spanner
disc or something. It's like a round, flat, it almost looks like a seashell that's Sonic, and it's like,
this is bullshit.
It's like it's been a screwdriver for 60 years.
Does
the
it
one
unlock
time
deadbolts?
they went, and there was a story reason why it was sunglasses with Capaldi, and then it went back to a screwdriver.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's a fucking screw. You know, it's like there's certain things like you're saying with the web swinging. You don't. Jodie Whittaker had a fucking screwdriver. It was badass.
Yeah, it was a great one.
Her fucking
with the big
screwdriver.
crystal in it and everything.
Oh, dude,
that was so
fucking
cool.
Awesome.
That was fucking rad. You don't step on Superman's cape.
No.
You don't step on Superman's cape.
And so Space Babies rolled into a frustrating episode for me. So it's called The Devil's Cord, which was the second episode.
Yep.
The villain in this is a character called the Maestro.
Okay.
And the Maestro, you find out, is the toy maker's child.
Of Neil Patrick Harris.
Of Neil Patrick Harris' child. So you find that out at the end. So it's like, okay. Jinx Monsoon, who was on RuPaul's Drag Race, plays the villain. Now, here's the thing on this. She fucking killed it.
Yeah.
Awesome. Like, I would watch anything she's in because she was fucking spectacular. But what they gave her to do was fucking terrible.
This is always the thing.
they had her like what she did, and it is kind of it has like a musical tone to it because the Doctor and Ruby, the whole point of the story is they want to go back to when the Beatles were writing their first album.
Okay.
So they go to Abbey Road or not, whatever the first studio was, the EMI recording studios that they wrote their first album. They go there, and early in the show, but prior to them going, the maestro steals music from the world,
like the concept of music,
like music, just in general.
Okay.
And so when the Doctor and Ruby go there are the Beatles and there's other artists, and they can't sing, and they can't write. They just have terrible, they can't do anything. And so it's kind of interesting, but like the maestro, the whole character was kind of dumb. Mm-hmm. Like the maestro's whole attack is like singing these physical music bars that come out and wrap around people and like contain them, and it was like kind of dumb, and she trapped people in musical instruments.
Yeah.
And so that's what I'm saying, like, if you watch it, you're gonna say, holy shit, this actor killed it, but fuck, they killed the worst goddamn script.
Yeah.
And then of course it ends with them defeating the maestro in kind of a chintzy way. It's like they send supposedly the piano from EMI Studios that the Beatles wrote their first album on is a special piano, and it has special powers, and there's certain chords that if you play it, it sends the maestro back into like this nether world where she came from.
Now.
And so there's a big battle at the end, and the Doctor and Ruby are tied up, and the maestro shoots the piano into the hallway. And who's walking down the hallway? Paul McCartney and John Lennon. And they, all of a sudden, they have this vision of this music, and they play the music to destroy the maestro.
Yeah.
And you're like, fuck my brain right now.
We were talking about Deus Ex Machina. This is just like this is like the Terminator, beginning of Terminator, where it's just fleets of robots as Deus Ex. That's pretty bad. And I get it. Doctor Who plots can get real crazy, right? I've seen Doctor Who plots get real crazy, but like there's still something that ties them down.
Yes.
And I feel like this is just for jokes. This is just kind of done for the ridiculousness of it.
And then it ends with a huge musical number with the Doctor and Ruby, and they're getting everyone involved, and they're having this big song, which was all right. You know, the Doctor, I can't remember his name, the new Doctor. He's got a great voice.
Yeah.
And even Ruby, great voice. So like they were singing, it was fine. But okay, so the two big things I have a problem with this episode, other than just a shitty written episode, like it was truly shittily written, they once again completely slapped you in the face with the pronoun thing.
Okay.
Like, once again, like I've said before, I don't care that it's a drag queen. I don't care about any of that stuff. But when you get overly preachy, and it's like when the maestro is first getting like introduced, the guy that she steals the music from, he's like, oh, and I think he called her, like, what are you? And she's like, thee, them, they, and, like, made a big deal of saying it. And it's like, you didn't have to do that.
When you stop the show, when you bring the show to a screeching halt,
yes,
so we can talk about someone's pronouns, that's not an effective way to have that as a conversation.
And it's like, you have written in, and you cast the right person for this role, and you've written in a character that is played by a drag queen, and you did it, you had an opportunity, because once again, they picked the perfect person, and then they not only wrote it shittily, but then did, like, really nailed you in the face right away, because it's in the first, like, 2 minutes.
Yeah.
And it's like, dude.
Because that was my issue with the Christmas special. Not the Christmas special. The
last
Tennant special.
That was both of our issues.
Was just that first episode with the Meek or whatever it was.
Yes.
Where they fully come to a complete stop so they can talk about the Meek's gender. And I'm like, I just feel like we're getting out of what we should be doing.
And this is the same thing with that, because, like, our problem was the first half of that episode, you had a transgender person, but you didn't mention anything about Like, you didn't make a big deal of it. You made it seem like it was a normal thing, which it is.
You had characters speaking about it privately.
Yes.
With how they felt about it.
Yes.
But you didn't have this whole thing where everybody needs to come to a halt and have a whole conversation. Everybody go around the circle, say what your pronouns are, we'll all have a conversation. I don't have a problem with that as a concept. I have a problem with how you address that in a story.
Yes.
Because the way that you address that in the story, the idea is to have it be as natural as possible. You don't want this to be this big sore thumb that sticks out.
Yes.
Right? You want this to be natural. It's like having African-American men win Oscars.
Yes.
Or having mixed race couples on film. You don't want it to be the basis of the whole film.
Yes.
You don't even want anybody to bring attention to it. You just want it to be there and have no one talk about it because then it's been normalized. Once you get there, then it's been normalized.
And then you fucked it up like you did in this episode. You fucked it up in that first episode by having an actor that in real life is referred to as she. She wants to be called a she.
Yeah.
She is referred to as she for the entire fucking episode, and then you say at the end, well, the reason why, and it would have been genius if they would have done this the whole episode, is that the reason why she is the way she is because she's part doctor, and the doctor's non-binary, and she's not, and they refer to her as non-binary. It's like, well, if she's non-binary, you wouldn't have called her she throughout the whole fucking episode. Yeah. And that's the part that drove me nuts. And with this one, you have an alien. It's not a humanoid, so it shouldn't be he, she.
Yeah.
Not make a big deal of it. You don't even have to say she or he. It's just they.
Yeah.
But why do you need to say it and make it a thing?
Yeah.
When you just, like, if he would have just been said, yeah, they, instead of saying, oh, they, them, and, like, having it be a stop, like you're saying, stop the episode thing.
Yeah.
You gotta weave it more natural because it is a natural thing that happens now. It's just the way the world is now, which is great. But make it feel natural. Don't make it feel like you have to force it in.
The more you draw attention to it,
exactly,
the more it looks like you're doing this against your will and as a statement, not as we're just doing this because it's the right thing to do.
Yes.
We're doing this because we're morally right. And it's like, that's not what you should be doing this for. You should be doing this for because it's the natural, normal thing to do is to address this person as an individual and just listen to what they want to be heard as
like,
and address it that way.
This is going to be an old callback. The Jeffersons TV show. And I thought about this after that time we talked about that episode. It's Lenny Kravitz's mom? I don't know if it's his dad too, but the George Jefferson's neighbors was a black man and a white woman. They never made a deal of it.
Yeah.
And it was like, that was in the fucking 60s? Or it was in the 70s, I think. But it's like, back then, that was, I think it was still illegal in some states, but they just did it. And they said, this should be normal.
Yeah.
So we're not going to say anything. It's just normal.
Yeah. Well, and like, I look at
do that.
I look at Mystery Men, where you have William H. Macy, and he has a African American wife. It's not a part of the plot. It's not something that comes back into anything. They just cast an African American woman to play his wife, and it's not a big deal, and it's not part of anything. It's just a thing. It's just a choice that you made that doesn't mean anything. It's not for making a stance or any of these other things. It's just there because it's the right thing to do.
Yes.
And also. I don't care for the fact that you keep on introducing non-binary characters as villains. Not a huge fan. No. Not a great look. I'm going to just tell you right now, you're about 3 degrees away from Buffalo Bill in Silence of the Lambs. Yeah. So, like, maybe don't.
What drives me nuts about, and this is Russell T. Davies, he talked about it, this is his message. It's like, your message should be, this is a normal, natural thing, and it's not a big deal.
Yeah.
Not, I need everyone, no matter how mad it's going to make you, I'm going to jam it in your face. It's like, no, dude. You just make it what it is, which is a natural, normal thing, and then people won't give a fuck.
Yeah.
Like, and that's the thing that drove me nuts. And my wife even, we looked at each other, we're like, fuck.
If you ever act like it's not natural, then people won't see it as natural.
Yes.
So you have to have it be natural. It's like everything else in Doctor Who. When you tell me that this character stole the concept of music from the world, that doesn't faze me because that sounds like Doctor Who.
Yes.
It's the exact same thing. You just have to approach it with the confidence and knowledge of being like, we're not going to address it. It's not a big enough deal and it's not part of the message that we're saying. We're just having this character here and they're non-binary and that's just going to be part of the story. Nobody has to acknowledge it. It doesn't have to be a whole thing.
Yeah.
Just have it be part of the story so it can be normalized within culture.
And once again, that took away a little bit in the beginning from what the shining part of this whole episode was Jinx Monsoon.
Yeah.
But you kind of sullied it at first by having that, and it's like, so if any takeaway, don't watch Space Babies. It is fucking terrible.
It sounded bad. I'm not going to lie to you.
It is atrocious. It's the epitome of a throwaway episode.
Yeah.
Watch The Devil's Cord. Costumes are great.
Okay, that's good.
Because they're very 60s costumes. Okay. Great costumes. And Jinx Monsoon's performance with a bad writing is fantastic. I highly recommend it for that, but understand that it is not a good representation of Doctor Who.
Here's my question for both, and this has nothing to do with gender. This is just about the show itself. This sounds like it's CGI heavy between the babies and some of the powers that the Maestro has. How is the effects? Because I don't mind cheesy effects in Doctor Who. I look at the Daleks, I'm like, this is great. But if it's bad, then we have to have a conversation.
The Space Babies isn't terrible. It's literally just babies. And they do the
It's not CGI babies?
No, it's not CGI babies.
Okay.
And they do the, look who's talking, moving the bottom mouth so it looks like they're talking.
Okay.
And then I think there's a mix, like a 50-50 with the mucus monster. It's really mostly shown in the dark, so it's not overly noticeable.
Okay.
It's just a stupid fucking monster. And
the entire concept is really dumb.
The Maestro stuff is like classic tongue-in-cheek CGI Doctor Who. So, that's not a big deal.
Okay.
And then it's mostly practical other than that. But, my big problem with everything is just they're changing who the Doctor...
Yeah.
Down to the Doctor's core. Because regardless of if the Doctor changes gender, changes sex, or not just changes anything, it's still the same person.
The fundamentals
of the Doctor is still the same, and it will always be the same, and they're getting away from that. Once again, I don't know if they're going to use the excuse of, when the Doctor split, the new Doctor, all of that old stuff is with David Tennant, and this is just a different thing.
That's dumb.
It's dumb, but at least,
then I don't want to watch the show.
Have a scene. No, but at least have a scene explaining that.
Yeah, no, I agree. No, my thing is, I look at Tennant and I look at Smith. Those are my two Doctors, right? And these two are fundamentally the same with some different knobs pulled on each, right? So David Tennant is a little more rude and a little more crass about things. He has a little bit less of patience. He's a little bit more temper heavy. Matt Smith is kind of more idealistic and boyish in his view. Yeah. And he just kind of wants to go along with everything. But fundamentally, if you show each of them a void ship, they would both have the exact same reaction to a void ship.
Yeah.
Of just how do I get in there and see
what's
inside?
That?
Why is it here? Yeah. What's going on? The idea that the Doctor would ever run away from a problem when someone else is in danger is antithetical to the entirety of the Doctor.
Yes, I agree. And that's my biggest my biggest problem, my biggest concern.
Yeah.
So the next episode, which came out Friday, which was Boom, I have not watched yet. Hopeful, because I've heard good things, because it is written by Stephen Moffat and not Russell T Davies, and Stephen Moffat was the showrunner for both Matt Smith and Peter Capaldi. Mm-hmm. And regardless of the problems people have with Capaldi, I still loved Capaldi, and he still is my favorite episode. He's not my favorite Doctor, that's Matt Smith. But he has my favorite episode ever.
The Ballad of River Song.
The Husbands of River Song.
Yes.
That is, in my opinion, by far the greatest Doctor Who episode ever, because you can watch it not knowing really anything about Doctor Who and everything. It's just so entertaining.
Yeah.
But even that, there's a lot of moments with his Doctor with great speeches and great villains. And that's the thing that I think is already kind of shitty. Even going to the toy maker, and I don't blame the toy maker, because they just underutilized the toy maker. They did not make it.
They didn't seem to know how to use them.
No, I mean, because you have a 3-story arc and you show him in the third story.
In the very last story.
Dude, he should be in the.
He should be a part of this whole thing.
So far the villains, and this is what surprises me, is that was the big criticism for Jodie Whittaker's, is that the villains sucked. And they went away from the classics, and it's fine. If you don't want to do the classics, you don't need to. But Stephen Moffat created the Weeping Angels and the Silence, and it's like, fucking amazing bad guys.
And they fit into the canon.
Yeah.
Like, they don't feel like they're out of place. I always felt like the Tooth Monster from Jodie Whittaker's whole season.
Oh, God.
I was like, I don't know if this fits, and I don't like looking at him. I don't know. This is fine. I just feel like it doesn't fit here.
Yeah, no.
But, like, that's the thing, is that it has to fit the canon.
Yes.
At the end of the day, it has to fit the canon. Like, I didn't love... you say Moffat did some of the best Doctor Who, and I kind of like shrug because I didn't love the third season of Matt Smith, and I didn't like almost any of Capaldi. But like at the same time, like you can still look at, as much as I didn't like Dinosaurs in Space, you can still look at that and be kind of like, okay, but it still has the same kind of flair and feel as other Doctor Who episodes. It's a little bogged down in some other stuff. There's some weird stuff going on. The stuff with Cleopatra, I'm like, I don't fucking know what to do with this.
But that's a great... The Dinosaurs in Space gave us the classic Doctor Who reaction to Dinosaurs in Space, which is him giddy as a fucking child going, oh my God, it's Dinosaurs in Space!
Well, and like you look at the other episode that I love from that season, because again, I only really like the first half of that season where we introduce Clara. Because I don't mind Clara.
Yeah, I don't mind Clara.
But they never do anything interesting with her. To me anyway. I felt like they didn't necessarily land anything with her that was important. I think the best episode was where Capaldi is trapped in the TARDIS, and she has to pretend to be the Doctor and kind of give instruction and get instruction from the Doctor in the TARDIS, but he can't get out of the TARDIS, so she's running the show. I was like, okay,
was that when it was shrunk?
Then when it shrunk. I like that episode. I like that episode a lot. And I like Clara as a character. But I just felt like there were a lot of moments that didn't line up, and a lot of that was just because Clara's whole storyline is just concocted, right? Like, there's just so many moments where, like, but why was she in a Dalek? Don't worry about it. But she's like a teacher, right? But why was she in a Dalek? What happened to Souffle Girl? I'm so confused. I can't get off Souffle Girl, and you want me to, but I can't. I just can't. I need answers on Souffle Girl. So, like... that was always one of the things that caught me, right? And also the deep sadness of Matt Smith after the Ponds leave was just like, I can't hang out with you when you're like this, man. I want to be supportive, but I can't do it, dude. And I still look at that episode where all the little boxes show up on Earth and nobody knows what they're for. And Matt Smith, Doctor Who, just has to hang around for a week, and he's so bored waiting to find out what's up with these boxes. And meanwhile, I'm like, but this is fascinating. This is so interesting.
See, the funny thing, my favorite thing about Clara was every interaction she had with Strax, the Centauran, and he referred to as boy. Yeah. That killed me every time. Hey, boy. I'm not a boy, I'm a girl. Like, every time it murdered me.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, is like, I miss Centaurans. I miss... Daleks, I miss Cybermen, I miss these, it's like it's like making a Spider-Man movie without the Green Goblin.
Yeah.
It's like, no, dude, you gotta...
They've done that a few times, but if your villain in the Spider-Man movie was Speed Demon, and you didn't do it well, then I would be like, and you chose Speed Demon, why? So you had this whole pantheon. Shocker would have been better than Speed Demon. Big Wheel. Why are we doing Big Wheel?
Yeah.
Can someone explain this to me? Because I feel like I'm just not getting it.
I don't know. So that's where I am with Doctor Who. I'm hopeful for this next episode. I'm not going to hold my breath because so far in these first 3 with the new Doctor, it's just... It's like you can't have a property that's 60 years old and change it this much.
Yeah.
Because once again, I know they're trying to get a new fan base, but it's once again with the Marvel and how we are with comic books and how they're doing the MCU now. It's like you're only here because of your old fan base, though. Well, so you need to give them some resemblance of what they fell in love with. Instead of just having the TARDIS is not enough for me.
Well, like you look at, let's take another British property that's been around forever and had multiple people in its role, James Bond.
James Bond, yes.
You look at James Bond, and if James Bond went in and had a Heineken and it wasn't shaken or stirred, oh wait, that did happen, and people lost their minds, but it wouldn't be that big a deal. If you had James Bond unable to kill someone because of some fear or issue or deep internal strife or something, you'd be like, but what about, all this? I feel like this is disingenuous to the last 60 years of content that we've been given.
Yeah.
So you can't just turn on a dime. And it sounds like they're lining it up to be like this big twist later on of like, why is the Doctor scared? We're going to find out. But like, you got to lay down better breadcrumbs than that.
Yeah.
And that's a really big twist. So you better pull that off, because that's not great.
That's not great. And I like your analogy with James Bond, because they did it right in, what's the final one? A Good Day to Die?
No Time to Die.
No Time to Die. Where James Bond, the character traits, he's a flawed individual.
Oh,
he's, no matter what time frame it's in, he's going to be a womanizer, he's going to kill people. All of that's got to be there. But then you show him in this movie where he does actually have a conscience and shows emotion. And that's kind of what Daniel Craig's whole run did, which helped humanize the character a lot more.
The whole of Daniel Craig's run is him becoming a human.
Yeah.
He starts out as this inhuman person who kills first and asks questions later.
Yes.
And then he meets Ava Green, and he slowly starts to be like, oh, maybe I do have feelings. And then she dies, and he goes on this whole rampage, and then he meets... I can't remember the name of her character, but the woman in No Time to Die.
Leia Saido.
Yeah. So you have, when she's introduced with her...
Can I show you how douchey this is, though? She truly is the number 2 person in that movie. Ana de Armas is number 2 on the billing on IMDb, even though she's in it for 3 minutes.
They have been saying that they're going to make a Paloma. They're going to make a Paloma film for years now.
I don't think
years now. They've been saying that they're going to do that. It's never going to happen.
I think Ghosted
it's going to happen.
Film.
It's going to happen when Silver and Black and the Aunt May movie where she's a secret spy come out.
Yeah.
When those movies come out, we will get Paloma. Until then, it's never going to happen.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, I like Paloma in that movie. I think she's really charming. She's a breath of fresh air with everything that's going on. She needs to be there longer. And it's not just like a sexiness factor. It's like a character factor. Yeah. I like having her as a character. I like kind of her like looking around and being like, oh, wait, I'm in the wrong place. I got to go do this. And like, I like that. I thought that was really charming. And yeah.
Well, and it's funny because her and Lashana Lynch, both beautiful women, but they did it properly to where, okay, they're beautiful, but they still kick serious fucking ass, and they don't need James Bond to save them.
No.
And it's like, oh, so that's how you write a proper female character. Yeah. Maybe the MCU should look at James Bond now, and maybe they can learn from that.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
It's not good when that's how bad it is with the MCU. How bad is it? It's so bad that you can look at James Bond for pointers on how to have well-written women characters. Yeah. That's how bad the MCU has gotten.
Which, it's funny, the best analogy I have for that is there was a John Oliver show where he's talking about the WWE.
Oh, yeah, I love that one.
And how awful they are, but he goes, they're below the NFL. If you're below the fucking NFL and how you treat your people, you know you're bad.
That's really
how
bad.
This is.
That's really bad, guys.
That is how this is. But so there's my Doctor Who rant. I'm excited for this 3rd episode because I'm hoping that it's a course correction, but
we'll see what happens.
I'll let you know next week.
I'm gonna try and go fishing for some Doctor Who. I do this with every Doctor. I give them like 5 episodes to kind of make their point and show me what their episodes are gonna be like. And Capaldi did not wow me. I liked Jodie Whittaker at first, but I just felt like there wasn't a through line, like a strong through line with the character and everything. I also, some of her companions felt like hangers-on, less like interesting, important characters.
See, like that's the thing is I cared more about the storyline of the grandfather and his grandson than I did Jodie Whittaker. So it's like, and they had set them up for a spin-off, which I don't think that's going to happen, like a Sarah Jane Chronicle type thing. Yeah, so who knows?
Yeah.
Who knows?
All right, so I'll jump in here. I got like a bunch of little lily pads to jump off of to finish my Batman Beyond thought. I've been watching Batman Beyond. Anybody who hasn't watched it, it's from the 90s. It's like one of the last.
The Return of the Joker one is
it's so good.
So fucking good.
It's so good. Just like that's an actual mystery done really well. And between the voice cast, the voice acting, the direction, the writing, all of the show is just really good, and it addresses a lot of superhero stuff that I had forgotten how much I missed. I had forgotten how important civilians are to a superhero story, because civilians have just disappeared after Batman v Superman. No, after Man of Steel, I should say, when Metropolis is decimated, and everybody was horrified. Superhero stuff went like, oh, I guess we can't have casualties. No more casualties. No more huge human casualties. And so all the fights are done in these like abyssal wastelands where nobody is. And I'm like, oh, okay. But like Batman Beyond, what's great is that Terry has to stop being Batman fighting somebody so he can be Batman saving somebody. Or, you know, you have these interesting concepts. Like, since it's the future, it's like Doctor Who. Anything is possible, and we don't have to worry about the physics of it. It doesn't, you know, pseudoscience or whatever, it doesn't matter. Come up with any argument you want. None of it matters when you have a character who can change the way that sound waves are processed by the brain so that nobody can understand each other. But, like, just the idea of this character who can make it so that nobody can understand each other, and that's his superpower, is that he creates this wavelength that nobody can hear and nobody can pick up, but it makes it so that nobody can understand each other. It's all babble. And now Batman has to go out and try and fix this problem. But while he's trying to fix it, the entire city's going crazy because nobody can talk to each other. So there's a crane falling off of a skyscraper, and he has to figure out how he's going to catch that while all this nonsense is happening, and he can't talk to Bruce, and he can't figure this out. He just has to go out and figure it out how to do it in the moment. We never get that anymore. There's no problem solving in superhero stuff. It's just, I'm going to punch it as hard as I can, and after a while, it's going to go down. It's like, no, but like, how are you going to stop the helicopter from crashing into the freeway? Because you don't have super strength and you can't fly. So what's your plan? That's one of my favorite moments in Under the Red Hood. Is when you have the Red Hood blows up a helicopter and it's falling off the top of a skyscraper, and you have Nightwing and Batman being like, okay, I got the helicopter, you go get him, and Nightwing is just furiously stapling down this cable trying to keep it on the building. But it's like, what are you gonna do? You got to have a plan. We have to do this right now. What do you want to do? And I just don't feel like we get enough of that in other comic book things of like, even Invincible, if we end up getting to it, doesn't really have that. It's more like, I'm just going to punch my way out of this. And then we'll talk about our feelings afterwards. But right now, let's just punch our way out of it. And there's something so nice about having a superhero who has to have more than one thing on their plate. It's not just like, I'm chasing this villain, I have to figure out how I'm going to fight them and what I'm going to do and what my plan is. I'm chasing this villain, but I also have to save these civilians. And also, all the animals at the zoo are going fucking crazy because there's this high-frequency noise going off. So now I have to fight this gorilla and these elephants and save these zookeepers and do this and take care of my homework and get home by 9. This is so much more interesting than so much superhero stuff now. And it's just this animated show from the late 90s. It's really good. I really love it.
It's so good.
If you've never seen Batman Beyond, it's a lot of fun.
Oh, it's so much fun.
It's a lot of fun. And it's not just a pastiche on Batman where it's like, oh, this is the new version of the Riddler or whatever. You know, there's the Joker gang is there. And you do have alludings to Mr. Freeze and Bane. We get to see what Bane looks like at the end of his life when he's been living off of Venom for so long. Really interesting concepts. Really, really cool things that they do.
And that's how I love that, how, like you said, they don't reinvent the villains. They just have people who are their acolytes create gangs based on those.
Exactly.
And that's awesome.
So
it's a great idea.
We have Talia al Ghul show up.
Yeah.
No proper Ra's al Ghul. But even then, you have great moments where you have Terry comes into the Batcave and he's talking to Bruce. And he's like, I read the file on Raz. He's this and this and this, and he uses the Lazarus Pits and blah, 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 blah. And Talia comes up to him and she's like, well, you're not wrong. It's pronounced Raish, not Raz. And I'm just sitting there like, I said that like 2 minutes ago. I just chastised Terry for calling him Raz. It's not Raz, it's Raish. Anyway, awesome. I do love going back to cartoons like that right around the turn of the century where it's, I don't know what it was in the water, but the superhero content from there was just so much different than the large-scale concepts that we have nowadays.
Yeah, I agree.
Even X-Men 97. When was the last time you saw anybody save civilians in X-Men 97?
No.
It didn't come up. It wasn't a thing.
No.
It wasn't a thing. We had arguments over whether you do it for the right thing.
They talked about it.
They talk about it, but they never show it. It's never part of the actual plot.
I mean, you could kind of say the whole final episode with Charles getting into Magneto's mind is him saving civilians.
No, but we're talking like practical means.
Yeah,
like
no direct.
Jumping and making sure someone doesn't get crushed by something.
Yeah.
Having Spider-Man have to stop a fight because he has to go and catch something before it lands in the middle of the street.
Yeah.
These are the things that I'm interested in.
I agree.
One of the things I like about Spider-Man 2, the game, is that they have moments like that where Peter, when he's possessed by the symbiote, is doing all kinds of crazy shit and destroying things in his vendetta to stop something. And everybody's like, dude, what the fuck are you doing? Because that's the appropriate reaction. Whereas, like, if Tony goes through and blows up an entire street, nobody cares. It's not a problem. Tony's going to go and blow a bunch of cars in a parking garage. Not an issue. Don't even worry about it. Don't sweat it. It's not a problem. I did want to give a quick shout out to Dropout TV as one of, my monthly shout out to Dropout. They've had some really great content recently. They started a new show called Smarty Pants, which is basically it's not even competitive PowerPoint. It's just like comedic PowerPoint.
Okay.
So you have 3 comedians come up and they each have a PowerPoint slide that they've gone through where they're talking about something, and it's presented as like a PowerPoint, but it's ridiculous thing. So you have my boy Jacob Wasaki did one about who are the best cryptids to blaze with. This is the level of content that we're talking about. Jessica Ross had a great one recently about how wrestling and drag are actually the exact same thing. And it's like,
That's funny.
Oh yeah. No, but they are.
Yeah.
Like, and she breaks down, you're like, yeah.
Yeah, you can't look at gold dust and not say that is just the
This is what she says, exactly. She talks about gold dust in China, and she's like, tell me again about how there's not gender play in wrestling.
Oh, are you kidding
And then you're going to have
me?
all these men strip down to their skivvies and wrestle. There is gender play in wrestling. Dimension 20 Junior Year is coming up on its finale.
Okay.
If you want to catch up on that, anybody, it is a haul. I won't tell you that it's going to be a quick thing. I think there's probably about 20 hours of content.
Oh, Jesus.
But, no, actually, no, it's like 40 hours of content because it's almost 2 hours an episode, and there's 20 episodes.
Oh, wow.
So there's a lot of stuff to catch up on if you want to catch up on Junior High.
20 movies.
Yeah, but or on Junior Year. It's really good, though. And Brennan Lee Mulligan, as always, fucking killing it. One of the greatest storytellers of our age. And speaking of, they also had him on their award-nominated, or hopefully, knock on wood, award-nominated show, Very Important People, which is just like an interview show, but the person being interviewed is put in a like full body costume with prosthetics, and they don't get to see it ahead of time. So they're just put in this costume without seeing anything, and then they're shown themselves in the mirror, and then they're pushed out to do an interview.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
And so they had one where Brennan is dressed, and he's just covered in furs and hair and stuff.
Oh, that's amazing.
And he goes so ham, and it's so good. I loved it. I did want to touch on, to finish off, I did want to hit the trailer park really quick, because we do.
There's one big one.
There's
at
least 2 things that I wanted to talk about. Do you want to talk about Wicked, or do you want to talk about Rings of Power?
Rings of Power.
Let's talk about Rings of Power.
Rings of Power season 2.
I want to
official trailers out.
I want to have faith in this.
I have zero faith.
I really want to. I don't, but I want to.
And that's the sad thing is they know the reaction that first season got.
Yeah.
So they needed to put out a trailer that put everyone at ease, and they failed.
Well,
I'm not saying the trailer looked bad.
The trailer is just, I don't know what to do with it.
I don't either.
Like, apparently Sauron is a shape changer, and now he looks like an elf, and
Yeah,
we're gonna do the exact same plot as the first season, where it's like, who's Sauron? Who's Sauron? We did that last season.
Yeah.
You had 3 Saurons, and only one of them ended up being Sauron, and none of it was in any way satisfactory. So now we're gonna play Who's Sauron again?
And, like, you're going to show a trailer and not tell us if Isildur lived.
Oh.
I mean, I don't know what
How
I'm
do
going
we
to
know
do.
if Isildur
I was so beside
lived?
myself.
I don't know if I can get over it. If Isildur died in that house, I don't know if I'll ever get over it.
See, it just looked like more of the same, which, once again, we didn't hate the first season.
No, I gave it a solid, like, B-.
Yeah, it was in that range. It's just, it's like, this is a property that you're literally spending $1 billion on for the show, and it's got to be an A. When you spend that much money, you got to nail it. You gotta be an A.
And, like, I was looking back at clips of the first season and just being like, oh, yeah, that whole thing with Gandalf and then the weird white
Gandalf
ranger
thing,
things.
And, like, how the Mount Doom came about with fucking water, and then the volcanic ash that killed nobody.
That killed nobody. The giant explosion that killed nobody,
Christ,
even though
dude.
Galadriel is standing right in front of a giant wave.
Yeah, and she's not indestructible.
No, she is not. She is immortal in the sense that she can't die by a age.
Yeah.
But, like, she can still die.
Yeah, she fucking died.
Tell that to the guy from Lothlorien who gets fucking capped on the wall.
That's
Elves
right.
can die.
A lot of elf bodies were lying there. And,
Elves can die, guys. Yeah. But just like this whole thing, this is what I come back to is like they show us these characters. And I'm like, oh, that's right. There was that one elf who was in love with the woman.
He was in that one quick scene.
What is this going to be a thing? Is he
and
going to be a
that's
character?
what this trailer looked like. It's like, okay, we got to get every main character from the first one and have a nonsensical trailer and just throw them in certain spots. Like you had the dwarf and his wife, and you have the elf, and you're like, oh, just throw them in real quick so everyone can be like, oh, I know. and then don't say anything.
And you had that moment, because you have a moment where you have Elrond and Durin and Galadriel all standing in a circle being attacked, and it's like, oh, shit's gonna go down, and they're gonna be ready.
Are they? Are they?
Is it? I'm not convinced. Let's not forget that this is the story where Galadriel got to the Grey Havens and swam back.
Yeah.
So let's not forget, they have made some cataclysmic decisions in this storytelling.
They took the most powerful elf warrior and put her in a dress dealing with politics for half of the episodes. It's like, okay, are you going to make Galadriel this badass that you promised us she was in that first couple episodes of last season, and actually have her be a badass through the entire season and not have her wasted?
Well, like, that's the thing, is that she's not even a good politician.
No.
Like, when she was going out and playing politics, she wasn't even a good politician. So why do you have her doing this? Like, I don't understand the purpose of this. Why are we doing this?
You're making me feel worse now the more we're talking about this. I'm so nervous.
I find it curious that they seem to be pushing really hard that this is going to be the creation of the, let me do some quick math, 9 plus 5 plus 7 is, no.
21.
Yeah. So it's like the 20-ish power rings that are going to be crafted. The 9 for men, the 5 for dwarves, the 3 for elves, the 1 for Sauron, whatever you want to call it. That's what they're saying the plot of the story is going to be this season. I just have so many questions about how this is actually going to be done. Is Celebrimbor going to be an important character? Is he going to be better than he was in season 1? Is the whole High Elf Council thing going to be going on, where the tree of Elendil is poisoned? What are we doing? Because I just have some real doubts that you guys know what you're doing, and instead you're just kind of like throwing stuff at the wall and seeing what sticks.
Here's an interesting analogy, and you tell me if I'm right on with this. How interesting is it that they've been able to take The Lord of the Rings and 100% turn it into Star Wars? Because you have 3 movies that came out first that everyone adores.
Yeah.
And then you have 3 prequels that come out that people hate. And then you have TV shows that come out that are like,
very hot and cold.
It's like
extremely hot and cold.
Truly, and now you're talking about a Rogue One movie, which is The Hunt for Gollum, which is truly, it's in between The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
It is fucking Rogue One. And so it's like, they're truly following the Star Wars timeline with fucking Lord of the Rings.
Further evidence that Star Wars has always been fantasy and space. Anybody who says Star Wars is sci-fi, not sci-fi, not sci-fi, not sci-fi. I got news for you, not sci-fi.
I've had this discussion with my son numerous times where I explained to him, because I have which recently I got Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan poster finally.
Oh, you did it.
One more. It's fucking awesome. It's not like the one that has Khan with his arms folded.
Okay.
It's the OG one that has Wrath of Khan in the middle with scenes from the movie around it.
Oh.
And it has the scene that never made it where David actually was, his mind, he was brainwashed by Khan and he attacks Kirk.
Oh.
And that's on the poster. It's fucking awesome.
Nice.
But I was pointing out Star Trek to my son and I'm like, that's science fiction because it might happen someday. Star Wars is science fantasy because it ain't fucking happening.
It's not even
unless
science
it's
fantasy.
happening in a galaxy
It's
far,
not
far away.
even science fantasy. You know what makes science fiction science fiction? Some element of explanation as to how what is happening is happening. Science fantasy is not a thing. Fantasy in space is what Star Wars is.
Yes.
There, you know how it's not science? There's no explanation for anything. When they brought in explanations, they said, hey, metachlorians. And we were like, fuck you!
Fuck you, metachlorians.
Fuck you!
Which, oh, by the way, I did go back and after our last episode, I rewatched The People versus George Lucas.
Hey!
That is such a great documentary.
It's such a good doc.
It's been a while since I've seen it.
It's such a good doc.
Dude,
that scene
love it.
where they talk about him going in front of Congress,
Yes!
that gets me so hard right in the
gets me
core.
so mad.
It makes me so mad.
But no,
it makes me so mad.
That is truly a great documentary.
Yeah. So yeah, no, I agree. We'll see how this goes. At this point, they're not at the Marvel level because Marvel is just like cratered, right? Marvel is just like sending missiles into the same crater, and it's like, I guess the crater's bigger today.
Yeah.
If you want me to think that it's going to get smaller, I don't really have a reason to think that's the case. They don't have a crater the size of Texas over here, Mr. President, but I don't have a lot of faith that this is going to work. We're still talking about sending oil riggers up into space instead of teaching astronauts how to drill for oil.
But here's how it will turn into Star Wars. If their Rogue One comes out, which is The Hunt for Gollum, and it has the success that Rogue One had, you know damn well they're going to do sequels.
Yep. Oh, yeah.
And those sequels will probably be like the sequels.
Yeah. 100%. All they need is one success, and then the springboard is going to get put down. They will put down billions and billions of dollars
and then
they think it'll work.
There'll be an Aragon Han Solo movie.
Yeah. Yeah, the early days of Aragorn and his journeys becoming a Dunedain, and no, I don't want to watch this, guys. I'm gonna tell you straight up right now, I don't want to watch this.
Ugh.
I'm all set. I did want to touch on Wicked because this was a very interesting trailer for me because this was the first trailer that had real plot in it, and I didn't know the plot of Wicked. It was very interesting to see, like, oh, this is the plot. But I'm sitting next to Kelly, who has been more than a Wicked OG. She was into it before it was even a thing. Like, she was into it when it was a book. And so she knows this shit. And I'm just sitting there with her, and she's having the reaction I have to every Marvel movie of like, but how is this going to work?
Yeah.
Because you're bifurcating the story, and I'm just looking at what you're presenting to me, and I just don't know if this is going to work. How is this going to work?
Yeah.
And so I look at it, I say, this looks like it could be interesting. It's not quite what I thought it was going to be, but it looks like it could be interesting. And then I have Kelly sitting there being like, I don't know. And this is in reverse what happens every time a Marvel trailer drops. Kelly's like, oh, that looks like it could be good. I don't know. I don't know. So we're going to see. I'm not saying that Wicked's going to be bad. I'm very curious to see how they end up landing this plane.
The only thing with this trailer, it made me question how dark a tone they're going to take with it. Because I do want to take my daughter. She wants to see this. She loves this shit. But it's like, is it going to get too dark in some moments to bring a 6-year-old, 7-year-old, whenever it comes out, too?
Yeah.
Or is it going to be light enough that even the dark moments aren't too bad?
Yeah.
So I'm curious as a parent about that. Once again, I'm the same as you. I never saw Wicked, heard it. I know of it. I know of the story. But I've never seen like a performance of it. So I'm curious to see it just because as long as they don't completely change, which if we do a watch read on that, Kelly definitely
has to sit with us, yeah.
Not knowing what's going on with it, I'm curious to see like what my reaction to the actual storyline is.
Definitely, yeah.
The only issue I'll have is Ariana Grande's got an amazing voice, but it's like, haven't you learned... But with musicians in the past, just because they're amazing singers, maybe their acting isn't quite... And I'm not laying any judgment because I have not seen the movie yet. But I have that feeling from her dialogue where I'm like, it's a little wooden.
That's how I felt about Ariana Grande just in general, was that I look at... I don't know if she was acting on Disney Channel or Nickelodeon, but whichever one she was on one of them. And I look at that show and I'm like, is your acting actually any good?
No.
You were a teenager, so I'm not going to criticize you. You're not a teenager anymore.
Yeah.
So I feel like with Cynthia Erivo on one end of this, you need someone a little stronger than Ariana Grande. We'll see if it works out. I'm not going to say that it can't work out, but I don't think Ariana Grande is going to be nominated for anything.
And like, I'm not passing judgment on Ariana Grande, but you're putting her in a massive movie.
Yeah.
To where like, I look at someone like Selena Gomez, and unfortunately, because of my daughter, I'm watching The Wizards of Waverly Place every fucking day.
Hey, just watch Murders in the Building.
Well, that's what I'm gonna say. What's the that zombie movie with Bill Murray and Adam Driver? Why can't I think of the name of it?
The one that was made by Jim Jarmusch.
Yes.
It's like Shamblers
The Dead
or something.
Don't Die.
The Dead Don't Die.
Dead Don't Die. Like, you can see her acting improving to now she's really good.
She's actually a really good actress.
She's awesome in it.
She's an incredible actress.
They never put her in a multi-million-dollar temple movie right away. It's like, Ariana Grande has done SNL a couple times. She was okay.
She was all right.
She was all right. But it's like, you're putting her in this massive holiday temple movie.
Her big thing is the voice. She doesn't have to do any acting on the voice.
No.
She just has to be a host.
Yeah.
That's all she has to do. So I worry that this is an instance where she has been picked for some reasons, not all of them justifiable. So we'll see.
Because, like, if you look back at The Bodyguard, nobody criticizes the movie in general, but Whitney Houston's acting wasn't the best because it was her first fucking movie.
Yeah.
So you're not expecting your acting to be great.
Yeah.
But it wasn't a multi-billion-dollar. It was a love story thriller that became this thing.
See, I just can't believe Kevin Costner as a bodyguard at any level.
He actually pulled it off in it, though.
Really?
If you watch it again... But see, this was back in the day when he was still, like when he did, what's that one with Gene Hackman and Sean Young? You know what I'm saying, though? It's like you had, like, Wicked isn't a tiny property. and you're gonna take this individual who, once again, extremely talented, but acting is a much different animal.
Yeah.
And I'm not too enthused by the potential. I'm hoping she proves me wrong in this.
No Way Out is the movie.
No Way Out, thank you. So,
Yeah, no, we'll see how it goes. I have no reason to think that she won't be capable of it. I just haven't seen her be a good actress, but I've also only seen her act in childish things. So she hasn't had to be a good actress. So we're going to see. We're going to see. It's also one of those things where her personality in real life might play into the character a little bit. We're going to see.
I think the problem I have with her is she has that. It's just a way of her speaking. She has like that wispy. Huh?
I really don't like her speaking
I don't like
voice.
that either. And then that's the tone she's bringing. To
she has a good singing voice. I do not like her speaking voice.
So that's the big thing. Like when I hear her talk, I'm like, I kind of cringe a little. I'm like,
yeah.
It's like
it's very airy.
The voice is a component of it.
It's a big part of it.
But
that's what I had. Unless you want to talk about the Dune series that's coming out that I have absolutely no feeling about.
I give a fuck about that.
It's happening.
Okay, so we're finishing off X-Men 97 with the final 3 episodes, which is, luckily for us, the Tolerance is Extinction 3-parter.
Yes, we don't have to come up with different titles. It's just Tolerance is Extinction.
And holy fuck.
Shit, dude.
This is the second series in a row after Fallout that completely stuck the landing.
I will say that I am 95% of the way there.
Okay.
There were a few moments throughout the series where things would happen, and I would be like, no, that's not the way that works. That's just not how that works. That's not a thing. We're going to allow it. It comes back to Gambit charging Wolverine's claws. I like it in concept. Let's talk about the execution of what this would mean. Okay, let's talk about the actual physical ramifications of what would happen as a result of this. Now, we could get into adamantium is indestructible. Is he just charging the adamantium and not the actual metal throughout his entire body? Is it just on his claws? Is it all of his skeleton? Because if it's all of his skeleton, then that force has to come out somewhere.
And it makes you think it can't just be his claws because they're attached to his skeleton.
This is what I'm saying.
And since it's metal, it would be traveling throughout his entire body.
Remy doesn't just charge part of the card. He charges the card.
The card itself,
And so I look at it conceptually, very high concept. Executionally, I have a few questions about this. I'm not sure how this works. The stuff with Storm going through her whole thing with Forge. And is this magic? Is this not magic? Okay, I guess we're just not going to commit on anything, and that's fine. But I am noticing Cannonball's nowhere in this show. You have Sunspot and no Cannonball.
Yeah.
You set up Cannonball at the end of the series, of the original series. They set up Cannonball. Sam Guthrie is here. They take an entire episode where they don't need to set up Sam, and he's here. So you're not going to do Cannonball?
And like you said,
Cannonball and Sunspot are they're BFFs.
They are literally the New Mutants version of like Wolverine and Cyclops.
Yeah.
You gotta have the two of them.
You have to have both of them.
Yeah.
They are a tandem.
Yeah.
They both join the Avengers.
Yeah.
Because the other is joining. Sunspot and Cannonball are they are two sides of the same card, man. You can't just do Sunspot. Sam Guthrie is here. I'm just confused.
Well, that was my only complaint about this series. I mainly like the storyline, and I love how the final episode they did the anti-Marvel thing where it was 44 minutes long.
Yeah.
It was one of the longest episodes. Was the fucking final episode.
Finally.
There was a lot of teasing of characters.
Yes.
That you don't ever really...
Which I don't hate. I have some strong feelings about it, but I don't hate it. I like having some characters come in and out of the plot. Listen, I end up having so many questions. I'm happy Cap is here. I am. I'm happy he's here. I'm happy he's in the war room with Tony. I'm thrilled about this.
Yeah.
I have so many questions.
Why are they just standing in the war room?
Well,
it's Captain America and fucking Iron Man. They're just like...
Let's start with the fact that that Captain America in this universe... I must have talked about this on the show before, but let's talk about it again. Captain America in this universe, as we see in Spider-Man the Animated Series, is trapped in a liminal space in between dimensions with the Red Skull. Okay, that is how he is keeping the Red Skull out of the universe, is that he's trapped in between time and space in this liminal space, and they're just stuck there. Now, when we get through Spider-Man's story, at one point the Beyonder teleports Cap out of that, but we're told that he's put back into the exact scenario that he was taken from. So, my question, I guess, is just, how?
Well, I think, once again, they're assuming anyone that watches this series will have just watched the original X-Men series and not the Spider-Man and all the other series.
But I'm just saying, if you're going to reference Peter, because they directly reference Peter, Flash, and Mary Jane,
they do.
And I'm happy about it, I'm not angry, but I still have questions vis-a-vis Captain America being here. It's not a problem, I'm not angry about it, but how? How is he here? I just need to have a conversation with somebody.
See, I don't mind that he's here, it's just they don't have him do anything. Like, even the fight against Rogue was kind of anticlimactic.
He's more there for talking. He gives talking points. He doesn't actually do anything.
It's like, how do you have Captain America and Iron Man with what you've shown them in other series, and you have them just standing in the war room while the world is fucking collapsing around them? It's like, they wouldn't just be standing in the fucking war room. They would have someone else protecting the president than fucking Captain America and Iron Man.
Well, they say that Cap is #1 cop, which traditionally means he's running S.H.I.E.L.D., or whatever the S.H.I.E.L.D. equivalent is. Which is, Steve's done that. Yeah. That's not uncommon for Steve. Both Steve and Tony have done that. Tony, much worse than Steve. Much worse than Steve. But I don't mind it in concept. My question then becomes, the whole world's in chaos, right? Bad things are happening everywhere. And you guys are just chilling here.
Yeah.
I guess my question is, why are you here? Also, not for nothing, and this comes up a few times. So... Let's. I have to set the table before I get to this point.
Yeah, why the world is in chaos, because what Magneto does.
So Magneto says, fuck it.
Yes.
He gets captured by Bastion and then released by Val Cooper, and it turns out that Bastion is Nimrod, kind of physicalized, but also not just Nimrod, like all Sentinel technology physicalized into a human form. We're not going to get into the comic book of it. I'm happy that they did it this way. I'm thrilled. I think it's great.
Awesome.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
I didn't think we were going to get Prime Sentinels like this, or Nimrod, or any of this shit. Bastion. Didn't think we were going to get any of this shit here, and we got it all here. And he's in the right costume and everything. This is fucking dope as hell.
Awesome.
This is fucking dope as hell. So when Magneto is finally released by Val Cooper, he says, fuck all y'all. And he stops the rotation of the planet.
Yeah.
And, all electricity goes out. Everything's bad. Everybody gets dumped back to the Dark Ages. And we're told over and over again that the world is going to end in 12 hours.
Yes.
Now, where they come up with 12 hours, I'm not entirely sure on. They don't tell us where 12 hours came from. They just say that we have 12 hours.
They needed a plot timeline.
But we don't, because even later...
I'm not saying we needed one.
Yeah.
They needed one. Yeah,
they needed a ticking clock.
Yeah.
But I bring this up because all electronics are nullified, including...
The Prime Sentinels.
To the point where Beast has to talk to Forge and be like, hey, Forge, why do your electronics work? And Forge is like, I thought about it, and I figured out a solution years ago to this problem. I knew it was going to be a problem at some point. I knew I needed to have my electronic implants still work, even if the electricity goes out. Thought about it, got it done. Tony doesn't have that capability. And again, in this universe, Tony freaks the fuck out when his chest piece stops working. Because... that happens in Spider-Man.
Yeah.
It gets damaged as part of the trip with the Beyonder, and he freaks out. He is scared. He is like, oh my god, I'm gonna die. Yeah. So, Tony.
Well, when we see Tony, though, everything had been restarted by then, because the Prime Sentinels were attacking the White House.
I think we see Tony when they're still in the dark. I think we see Tony in that first war room shot.
Was he in that first?
Maybe not. I have to check now. Now I don't know.
Because I think we see him when they're under attack by the Prime Sentinels.
I know we at least see him at the end.
Yes.
So that by then his stuff would be turned back on.
I don't know if he's in that first war room. I think it's just Cap.
I'm not sure. Now I have to check.
Yeah. We gotta check.
So something that I find curious.
But see, like here, okay. So this first episode is that problem I was talking about, and it's always comes down to Morph so far. One episode, he turns into Colossus, and I'm like, Colossus! No. When the Prime Sentinels are attacking and let's just say destroying the school, turns into Juggernaut. I'm like, Juggernaut, and then he's gone. I'm like, God damn
it, it was Morph again.
Fucking Morph again. But when I saw Juggernaut, I was watching it by myself. I'm like, and then it disappeared. I was like, fuck Morph. I fucking hate you.
Well, and it's so interesting because I heard this argument and I think it's salient, right? Because of Morph, we're able to see a lot of characters that we never would see in this show. Ever. True. Magic, we weren't going to see Magic in this show. At least not until next season. I still have a lot of questions about that. Like, a lot of questions. Ilana was a very, very sickly girl when we last saw her. I'm not saying her mutation couldn't have activated. It absolutely could have. I just have a lot of questions. At the end of the day, I just have a lot of questions, and I want you to go through the hopscotch of my questions and answer all of them, please. And thank you, because I have a lot of them. But I do like this episode. I like the build and feel of part 1, where you go to this town and you have like the whole thing with Cable and Cyclops and Jean, and they're just like
awesome.
doing that whole dance, and then you go to this town full of Sentinels and you're like, oh shit. And you start thinking about like how Bastion would have put that in place, and you're like, oh wow, this guy is evil. Like, damn. Like, wow. You also see Bastion taking on volunteers, which I think made the waters a little muddy for me.
That was a little weird.
Because it felt like the implication to me was that he turned his town into Sentinels just kind of like by poisoning the water or something. But now he's taking volunteers and turning them into Sentinels, and you get the reporter is turned into a Sentinel, and you're just like, okay. And she says like this whole line about would they remember if they're Sentinels or not, and I'm like, so were you coerced?
I didn't get that.
I'm confused.
I didn't get that either.
Because, like, a lot of these guys, I feel like if they get sliced and diced, I don't care because they agreed to become Sentinels. Even if they didn't know that they were becoming Sentinels, they are mutant haters who went to a giant secret organization and volunteered to be part of test subjects so that they could get rid of mutants. You get what's coming to you at that point.
And that's going off of what you're saying. I wish they would have put in a part where he said, I'm taking volunteers, but I also converted some against their will to put them in positions where I needed them.
I'm taking volunteers where I need them.
Exactly.
But make no mistake, this is
little
happening.
Line would have been a much better.
They set it up so it seems like everybody's volunteers, but there's so many of them that you're like, these can't all be volunteers.
They're not all volunteers.
And then Beast keeps on talking about like how they've been unwillingly turned into Sentinels, and I'm like, I don't know. A lot of them seem pretty jazzed about the idea. Yeah. I'm not gonna lie to you. I'm kind of conflicted with what you're telling me here, but then we get. I got 6 reasons for you. Nah, I got 9 reasons for it. I've been waiting so long for this. Guys, I've been waiting so long for this. Oh my god, I've been waiting so long for this. And it's so good. It's so perfect. The only complaint is that it's not long enough. But oh my god, I love that scene. I love that scene really so much. Even when he teleports all of them out and you see Wolverine through the port, I'm like, oh god, it's so fucking good.
Yeah.
This is the Nightcrawler I've been waiting for. And Nightcrawler's
so fucking good.
He's so perfect because he has so many scenes where he's talking to someone and he's doing that priestly thing where someone gives him a really good point and he just kind of like spins it in a certain way.
Yep.
So it's like, don't think of it this way, think of it this way. And it's like, oh, okay, so you are a priest. you're one part psychologist and one part charlatan.
Yeah.
But it's fine. It's fine.
And it's the thing I appreciated most about his character is his relationship with Rogue is so fucking
so
strong in the show.
It's so good.
And it's like they play off each other so well.
So well.
And it's not a sexual thing, and I'm glad they didn't make it into like it's just like he truly loves her like a friend and like a sister.
They became siblings in adult life. They realized that they were siblings, and they have spent the last few years as siblings, becoming closer every time that they hang out. Great. I just love when Nightcrawler Kurt shows up on Genosha and sees her and Remy, and just like the reaction that he has, it's just so good. It's so good and so authentically Nightcrawler. I fucking loved Kurt in this. I thought he was so perfect. He was so well done, and he was one of the things that if I did have a little flag on the original X-Men series, it's that Nightcrawler and Colossus are not major parts of the series. I think they're both in 2 episodes total in the entire series. So having Nightcrawler become a character who's a regular, I think he's in almost 4 times as many episodes in this season than he was in the entire series before this. So, like, I love it. He's my favorite. I love him here. Having Rogue here is so fucking choice. It's so good. The entire episode, part 1, is just really well done.
It's very strong.
I do think that it ends kind of wonkily.
The whole Xavier coming back.
Yeah, well, that was... Xavier coming back as Wolverine says, man, where's the professor?
Yeah.
And then the ship crashed.
That was kind of lame.
What are we doing?
I wasn't imagining.
And then the next episode opens with Xavier in bed, and he goes out of his room and he sees this hallway is just destroyed. And he has this look on his face like, oh God, what am I going to do? And I'm like, what do you mean, what are you going to do? How'd you get here in the first place, dummy?
How did you fucking sleep?
What are you talking about?
Everything is destroyed.
And why did you sleep? I'm not going to say you can't sleep, but if you have 12 hours, maybe it's not time for a power nap.
And that's the weirdest thing about Xavier in this whole thing. Overall, I didn't like him in this series. He had a couple really strong moments, like when he takes them to class when
Yes, with the
aliens.
Shi'ar.
And then him back and forth with Magneto at the end and the final, like those are great, but all the other middle shit I could give a fuck.
Yeah.
Like it was dumb.
No, and it was that classic Professor Xavier causing more trouble than he solved.
Yes, exactly.
Where everybody says, "Oh, the great Saint Charles Xavier," and everybody who knows him is like, "Actually, Chuck kind of sucks."
Yeah,
I'm not gonna
kinda
lie to
dick,
you,
dude.
he's not great.
All of this is really his fault.
It's kind of on him. He's kind of the one that pushed us to this point. Despite that, I really like episode 2 because, again, you have this build of, we gotta solve this problem, we gotta solve this problem, we gotta solve this problem. Right fucking now.
It has the best brutal scene, too. Oh my god.
But I love when Magneto brings Asteroid M to the Institute, and they're like...
To try to talk them all into
they're like battle planning, and they're like, blue team, you're gonna go here, gold team, you're gonna do this. And no. No. Maybe eventually, sure, but no. And just the bifurcation of the team, where Magneto is like, what do I have to tell you guys before you understand that this is never going to stop?
Yeah.
And I really love that moment where like Sunspot is like, nah, dude, my mom gave me up.
Yeah.
I'm not doing this. This fucking sucks. You guys all talk about like, oh, that's a problem for tomorrow if humans still hate us. Nah, dude, I'm fucking done. Yeah. I'm done with this shit, man. My mom saw 2 crazy robots with glowing hands who were clearly trying to kill me and said, take my son.
Yeah.
He's probably going to be fine.
And I'm glad they did that because I knew Rogue was going to go with him.
Yeah.
After Remy dies, I knew she was going to go with him. Sunspot was that Pyro from X2 where you're like, oh... Okay, but it makes sense. Like you said, it makes total sense why he went. Yeah, because his whole fucking family gave him up to the Sentinels.
I would also have loved to see like Morph go. Like I would have loved to have seen.
He thought about it.
I would love to have seen like 2 or 3 other like really core member X-Men leave. So it's just like Cyclops and Beast and Jean Grey and Jubilee, and they're like, gold team, blue team, let's go.
Well, you needed Wolverine not to go because
we have to have how it ends.
Dude.
I will say here, really quick before we get to that, 2 things. 1, the plan is to go to Muir Island because that's where they have all their secondary stuff. Anybody who doesn't know, Muir Island is in fucking Scotland. This takes place in fucking Westchester. What is their plan for this? They're going to have Nightcrawler teleport them. That's not how it works! That's not how any of this works! Listen, the guy has maybe 500 feet of room to teleport, and he has to see where he's going.
And he said that in an earlier episode where he's like, what do you want me to just transport you across the room? Because I need to see where I'm going.
Yeah.
So that made me go, well, what the fuck
are you talking about? And there's no electronics, so there's no planes.
Yeah.
So what the fuck are you talking about?
That was a little dumb.
And it just made me so mad because it was just one of those like, this is not okay.
Yeah.
This is not okay because I've seen this done so well. Wolverine and the X-Men, at one point when Genosha is attacked in Wolverine and the X-Men, a different animated series also on Disney Plus that you should check out because there's only 1 season, 13 episodes. It goes down really easy, really good. When that happens, Kurt is on Genosha. He sees what Magneto is actually doing on Genosha, and he knows he has to go and tell the X-Men. So he has to teleport at 500-foot gaps from Cuba to Westchester. And we see him do it, and it nearly kills him. Yeah. And it's so cool. It's one of the most badass things I've ever seen anybody do. But I guess you can just teleport across the entire Atlantic Ocean now.
And that's the part that was so frustrating is the fact that they literally said it.
Yeah.
Was it maybe 3 episodes ago? He says the words, I need to see where I'm teleporting. And then you're going to do this.
And then you're going to just be like, oh, no, but he can take us to Muir Island in Scotland. Oh. No, he can't. No, he can't. That's not a feasible option, guys.
That was dumb.
You would do better to have Cable come up with some kind of stupid future tech that allows you to teleport across the ocean. Yeah. That would make more sense than Kurt teleporting you across the ocean. That's not how this works. Yeah. And this is what I was saying about the 5 to 10% of the show that makes me crazy. Yeah. There's certain things in the show that make me just so mad because you clearly know what you're doing. Yes. You clearly know how this is supposed to go. You know the physics of the world. You understand how everything is supposed to work. You understand it so much that you can kind of grow on it, the way that Cyclops can move himself around now. And that's something that we haven't seen in an animated form previously in the 9 million animated X-Men shows that have been out. So you get it. Until you don't. And then you have these moments that hinge the entire series, and you're like, but they can't go to Muir Island. Yeah. It's impossible for them to get there. there.
That's true.
But they do.
But they do.
And when they do, as if to emphasize kind of the unnecessary nature of how things are being done, they show us all the old costumes. Love it. All the old costumes in the case.
Awesome.
Love it. Why do some of the costumes have wigs? Why do some of the costumes have wigs? I need to know. I need to know why some of the costumes have wigs.
That is weird. That didn't click in my head, but now
It's
that you
really
say it,
weird, guys.
It's a little strange.
It's really weird that Jean and Storm and Rogue's costumes all had wigs. It's a weird choice.
That's strange.
Yeah.
I didn't even notice that one. Now that you say it, though, now it's registering.
Fucking weird.
Yeah, that is strange.
But so, despite all of that, we have a great scene with Cable and Jean and the team
And
in
Mr. Sinister.
Galapagos Islands,
Yep.
and that whole thing is really great. I love the moment when Morph tries to sneak in as Mr. Sinister.
Dude, that was
got
awesome.
me. That got me so good the first time. It got me so good.
Yeah.
And I really was so impressed. You have the moment where Mr. Sinister claims his control over Cable. He's gonna kill Jean. I love that moment where he's like, my mom was one of the most powerful telepaths and telekinetics in the entire known world. Tends not to skip a generation. And it's just like, oh fuck yeah, this guy's about to go off. So, but this episode ends with Magneto, and I will say this was one of the things that I had kind of gripes with. Magneto and Logan don't get along.
No,
not in this universe, not in any universe.
No,
they've never gotten along.
Like him ripping the adamantium has happened many times before
in other universes.
Yes.
Why is Magneto fucking around with Logan at all? Just stick him to the wall like a fridge magnet.
I think
leave him there.
They're overdoing he's got like that fight going on in his brain between.
He's not focused on more. He can't focus on so many things.
Yeah. And he's trying to be good because Charles thinks he can. And
but you can still. We see
Yeah.
in the first X-Men movie, Magneto takes Wolverine out without a second thought and without violence. He doesn't do anything to hurt him.
Yeah.
He just says, you can't move anymore. Time stop. I cast on you, and you're done.
Yeah.
So why does Wolverine even have the capability to stab Magneto? Also, in a lot of canons, Magneto can sense any kind of metal around him. He just has like a Daredevil sensory of all the metal in his vicinity.
When the metal's in the guard, he's like, something's different about your diet, and then he knows.
Yeah,
you're right.
So why can't he tell that this giant creature made out of adamantium is sneaking up behind him?
Yeah, it was a little weird.
I'm not sure about this, guys. I feel like, again, you had a really cool idea, and then you didn't know how to get there, so you just kind of like slapdashed it together, and you were like, Magneto's distracted, he doesn't know. I gotta tell you, I've seen a lot of Magnetos in my life. I've met so many Magnetos wandering across the multiverse. No single one of them would have fallen for this trap.
Yes, I agree.
No single one. In Asteroid M, at the height of his power, no. Also, he picks up rocks for some reason, not iron, just big rocks. Just big boulders start floating in the air. Not how this works, guys.
Unless you can explain that there's metal in them.
Unless there's metal in them,
that.
but they don't say that.
You
He just
have to
lands
assume.
and he has a bunch of rocks float up around him. That's not how this works. He is not a terrakinetic. He is a magnokinetic. He can control magnetism. That's what he does. That's his whole thing. It has to have fucking metal in it. I sound like I hate this episode. No. I actually really liked it.
I know what you're saying. It's a great episode, but not everything is perfect.
It's when you get into the ticky-tacky things, it's annoying because you have moments like when Scott gives Cable a costume and he says, spandex. Really? What'd you expect? Black leather?
That was so
Let's
great.
fucking go! Let's fucking go!
That was so great.
So, like,
I did love the interactions between Scott, Jean, and Cable. They were really well done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I really was so happy with a lot of the show. It's just when certain things happen,
yes,
I start pulling out my hair because I'm like, but you're so close. You're not even like the rest of Marvel, where you're like miles away, miles and miles away from being good, or where you have the entire plate set. When I will never get over Black Widow having the entire table set for them. They didn't have to do anything.
Yeah.
They just had to execute the story, and they couldn't do it.
Nope.
They had to futz around with things and move stuff and change things and bring in their own. And, you know, they had a big, beautiful turkey on the table. They had to bring in their own tofurkey instead and put that in. Just have Taskmaster be the villain. Just have Taskmaster be the villain.
Yeah.
Why is this hard? Why are you doing it this way? And there's just too many moments like that in X-Men 97 where I'm like, that's not how the Phoenix Force works! That's not how it works! Like, I can get past so many things, right? There's so many moments that I can just be like, it's all right. Storm gets her powers back because she just really wills them back. I'm fine with that. That's cool. The whole thing with her and magic, I could use a little more explanation, but it's fine. I'll leave it. It's okay. Whenever I'm less confused when dealing with the Shadow King, not a great sign, but we'll leave it. It's fine. We'll move on. This is not how the Phoenix Force works.
So speaking of the Phoenix Force, let's go to episode 3. Okay, I did love the beginning of it where Charles takes over Magneto's mind. That was a cool scene.
That was pretty good.
Where he just loses his shit and says, I fucking gave you a chance, and now this is happening.
This is what you're doing?
And this is what you're doing? Full power, and like, that was fucking awesome.
And I love that in the opener, one of the things that they do in the opener that's so smart is they take that second chorus, and they use it to put little scenes in from the original series.
Yes.
So you have Cable fighting Apocalypse, and you have fucking Morphin Mr. Sinister, and you replace Jubilee with fucking Sunspot, and he's the one trapped behind the fence in the classic look. When you have Magnus and Charles facing off against a bunch of soldiers, that's in the original series.
Yeah.
So I love that, and it leads perfectly into that moment. But I had some serious questions, because the episode ends with Charles with the helmet stuck on his head. And Magneto pulling the adamantium out of Wolverine. And it begins with Charles having taken over Magneto's mind. Hang on. Wait, whoa.
What happened?
Hey, whoa. I feel like something really important happened here that you did not talk about, because we were not here. And this is not one of those scene missings where we can just kind of fill in the gap. It was a fight scene. Something happened. No! I really feel like Magneto had enough of Charles and was pretty much ready to crush his skull with the helmet after taking all of the adamantium off of Wolverine's bones. So you're going to have to come up with an explanation, and they never give us one.
They never do give us one.
They never give us any explanation as to how any of that happened, and that is just not acceptable to me. That's not okay. Besides that, in the Dark Phoenix thing, I really like the build of the rest of the episode, though. So, like, in terms of the fight scenes and the themes and the concepts, I really like all of them. Even the recruiting of Bastion at the end of the episode, I was like, this is authentically X-Men. This is how this would end. Is not with all of them trying to fight, but with them having a conversation with this character. So I like that. I like that a lot. The time travel stuff, I'm fine with. I got no problem with it.
Awesome.
I'm curious where
Especially
that's
when
going.
They realize that they saved Apocalypse, and they're like, "Oh shit!"
Yeah.
That was awesome.
And you know, when they meet Mama Akari and Baby Nathan.
Yes.
And I was like, "Oh, so you are going to be raised by Jean and Scott? Okay, all right, we got there.
That's so fucking cool.
But like, there were some moments, Phoenix rising out of the water.
Yes.
I was just like. And then she's like, oh, there was just a little bit of the Phoenix in me, and now it's gone.
That's not how it works.
No!
That scene, though, to me, was the classic MCU, we need a showstopper.
We need
We're
something
gonna
to happen.
explain it away in a dumb way, but we need this big, bombastic showstopper, and that's what that was.
Never mind the fact that we see the Shi'ar kill Jean with a railgun so that the Phoenix is released back into the space, and the Phoenix says to everyone, hey, my bad, sorry, I found out what human existence was like, and it kind of drove me crazy. I'm going to go back to being a force for good in the cosmic universe. And she leaves, and then Jean is dead, and then the Shi'ar come to them, and they say, well, we can bring her back, but it's going to take some life force from every single one of you. All of you are going to lose about 5 years of your long life. And we're going to give it to Jean. Okay. And that's how Jean comes back. She doesn't have some part of the Phoenix Force.
Yeah.
The Shi'ar would never have let her go if she had some small part of the Phoenix Force in her.
This was the Thor landing in Wakanda moment they wanted in the show.
How does Mr. Sinister clone her without noticing the Phoenix Force in her?
Yeah.
What the fuck are we talking about here, guys? We can't do this.
And, like, if she has part of the Phoenix Force in her, would the clone then have, like, a clone portion of the Phoenix?
There would be something.
There's got to be
something. They would not be a
explanation.
one-to-one because the Phoenix Force is a sentient being that goes around space.
So if you clone Jean, you would be cloning the Phoenix
Not
Force
necessarily,
that's in
because
her.
the Phoenix Force is a cosmic being, so you wouldn't necessarily clone it because it wouldn't have DNA that you could clone into the new being, but the new being would have something missing from where the Phoenix Force
That's
was.
true, and the Phoenix Force would also probably fight back during the cloning process.
Also true, because it would say, hey, you're
Yes.
endangering the body that I'm inhabiting. I'd really rather you didn't do that.
Yes.
Which is what the Phoenix Force has done on several occasions.
Yeah, that was weird.
Okay, the Phoenix Force went crazy after it found out about sex and food. You think it's going to be totally okay with just, like, being cloned and having all that? No.
No.
Jean has none of the Phoenix Force left.
Yes.
That's the only rational explanation for what happens. But I guess she can, because otherwise Cable's going to kill her.
That was a Feige moment right there.
Just like, what the fuck
was
is...
a
I
Feige
literally
moment.
turned to Kelly. I was like, this is not how any of that works. You can't show up with Cloak and Dagger and Daredevil and be like, hey, it's okay, we got Cloak and Dagger and Daredevil. Forget about the bad Dark Phoenix stuff. No!
That's the part that drove me nuts. I have been preaching from the start of this podcast when we first began. What do I want to see with X-Men? Alpha Force.
Yeah.
I love Cloak and Dagger also.
Why was Psylocke with Alpha Force?
I don't understand that.
What was that?
But how do you give us a brief split second of Cloak and Dagger and a brief split second of Alpha Force? Because we've seen Daredevil in things.
Yeah.
So, Daredevil was great to see him, but we know Daredevil, there's a fucking show coming out. I want to see more of Alpha Force and Cloak and Dagger.
Yeah.
Why would you fucking show him for 2 seconds?
Cloak
I
and
got
Dagger-
so excited to have my excitement just thrown away.
You brought Cloak and Dagger so you could do a ABC Family, Freeform TV show with Cloak and Dagger,
Yeah.
which no one watched.
No one fucking watched.
And you haven't touched them again since. And so you actually have this really good interpretation of Cloak and Dagger, even though they don't say anything.
Dude.
They just look and feel like Cloak and Dagger when they
love
move and
Cloak
talk.
and Dagger so much.
I'm just like, I'm happy. I'm thrilled that you, again, if we're talking about... You guys did enough research to know that Mary Jane should be here, right? Because even though in the canon of the Spider-Man TV show, Mary Jane leaves and then is cloned and then leaves and then never comes back within the body of the show, we are told as the last thing that as a prize for his heroics in putting up with so much shit on a cosmic level, that the gods are going to find Mary Jane in the multiverse or wherever she is in the liminal space in between verses and bring her back to Peter so they can be together. And we see her here. Okay, so that's tied off, right? They said that they were going to do it, and now we see Peter in the future, and Mary Jane is here. Also, Flash Thompson's in the background. Hey, Flash, high five. What? I don't know how you guys can get so much right and then get some stuff just like classically wrong.
And it's like when you have a character like Cloak, why isn't he sending the Prime Sentinels into the Dark Force dimension? It's like, open up your cape and fucking just absorb it. It's like, he's fighting them just like he's fighting. Yeah. And I'm like, no, dude.
Yeah. No.
That's not what he does.
No. It's like, I appreciate the thought. It's like how when...
It was cool to see
It's like when Morph turns into Hulk.
Yes.
I like this. I like this in concept. I have some questions, but I like this. I feel like there's a better way to use this.
Yeah.
I feel like there's a better way to do all of this. If this is going to be the way that we approach it, if he can become magic and have all of the access to magic's powers, I feel like that would be something that would be extremely useful. If he can become Juggernaut and have access to all of Juggernaut's mythical powers, because Juggernaut does not have mutant powers, he has magic-based powers. That would be a very useful thing to have.
Yeah. You would just stay as Juggernaut during this fight because
he literally can't be beaten.
He can't be beaten.
So what do you want me to tell you?
Yeah.
I can appreciate it.
Yeah.
There are definitely some moments where I was like, I don't know. Why is Pete in civilian clothes when the world is ending? Like, he would be Spider-Man 24/7. Especially this version of Peter. I've known this version of Peter since I was 6 years old. This version of Peter would have lost his goddamn mind trying to hold the world together. And he wouldn't have stopped for anything to do it. And here he is, just out on the street watching TV.
I wonder if it was a Sony thing, where they're like, don't
Well,
show
they
Spider-Man
showed
a lot.
they showed the
him
webhead
once.
in that one shot where the world
One
stops
shot.
turning.
But I'm wondering if they're like, we'll give you one shot. You can show Peter.
Yeah.
But we'll give you one shot of Spider-Man.
I'm not sure. I know that there's also been a lot of talk of them bringing back that version of Peter Parker in an animated series, which I'm not opposed to. I think that would be really fun. We could finally have some good CGI instead of the 1995 CGI that we had. Oh, it's not good, kids. It's real bad.
No CGI from 95 was good, so it was just bad.
But so I like this. I like where it ends. I like the whole
I
thing
did
with
like
Magneto and Xavier going back and forth. I love that we find out that Magneto's rage is because he can't remember the faces of his family anymore. He can't remember what they looked like.
That was so good.
And that's why he's angry.
The whole back and forth was so strong.
And it's just like, I love this.
Yeah,
this is what
really
I come to
good.
X-Men for, is this argument of tolerance. And when someone says, but they're going to be intolerant to you tomorrow, you say, then we deal with that tomorrow.
Yeah.
But right now, this is what we got to do to make sure that we get to tomorrow.
Yeah.
And I really thought that they hit on a lot of those landings. I was very, very happy with that. I even like kind of the implication that Morph loves Wolverine at the end, where he turns into Jean to comfort him.
Says, I love you.
And he says, I can't say it as me, but I can say it as her. And it's like, I think Morph has a thing for Wolverine.
Oh, absolutely.
And
because you kind of saw it little brief, like you could see there was an affection throughout the episodes, but this shows like love.
This is like actual love.
Yeah.
So, and I love that. I love that in concept.
Awesome.
I think that's amazing. I really want this to work. And now we get to the post-show part of it. I like how everything is done with some very firm issues. By and large, though, compared to other things, this is amazing.
Oh, it's great.
this is stellar compared to other things.
Like, we've had a lot of negativity, but once again, it's something we both really liked. So we're going to point out the negatives in hopes that maybe it improves even more, even though, I mean, I'm still like an A-.
I would put this at like an A.
Yeah.
Even with my issues and problems, I'm willing to overlook them because I had such a good time on the ride. You know, I didn't get whiplash. I didn't lose a joint or something when it went around a corner funny. I enjoyed the ride. It was a good ride.
See, I enjoyed the ride, but the reason I'm A- is the whole Storm getting her powers back thing.
Yeah.
That, I was fucking done with that 5 minutes into it.
And bifurcating that because you needed to have Genosha happen in between.
Yeah.
It's a very strange way to do that.
I was not a fan
It's
of
a little messy. It's a little messy. I am glad that I called it, because every time they would say, oh, Gambit's dead, I would say, until Apocalypse brings him back. Oh, Gambit's dead, until Apocalypse brings him back. Do you guys not know that Gambit is the Horseman of Death?
That really might be my favorite single scene when they realized they saved Apocalypse.
Yeah.
And their reaction. I was laughing my ass off because they're like, oh.
How do you see the red eyes and not think, I don't know about this guy?
Well, if you think about it, while they're watching him fight off his attackers, you don't see it that well.
But like when they talk to him.
Well, when they turn and talk to him, then
they should have been like, this is bad. He's got blue lips and red eyes. I know how this ride goes. Yeah. But I really liked it. I thought it ended really, really well, really, really strong. Usually when they lead into a second season, I get angry because there's not necessarily a guarantee that the second season is ever going to happen.
But we know this is going to happen.
We know that this is going to happen, which brings me to my next point. You fired the showrunner.
Yes.
And now they're going back and the showrunner saying, listen, I still wrote most of season 2 and everything. But you look at the litany of things that he says he's not going to be involved in. Everything. All of these things are things that I thought were amazing parts of the show. Right down to him being part of the music. And the music's amazing in the show.
Yeah.
So you fire this guy. You refuse to give a reason. So it seems like you fired him because he's gay. And he's online being gay. Yeah. That seems to be the overwhelming reason, because Disney won't give us anything else.
Which makes no fucking sense, because the way Disney's going with everything, it's like, you should be putting that on a pedestal.
So he has the thing that everybody on the internet points to, because they can't figure out what it is. So they're like, the only thing that we can guess is that he has a non-sexual OnlyFans where he talks about gay life. And that is why Disney fired him.
My only thought, going kind of hand to hand with that, is it's gonna come out that he, not full on Kevin Spacey, but maybe did something inappropriate.
That's the other thing that people are guessing.
That's the only thing that makes sense.
It's been months at this point. It's been months since he was fired, and they still haven't said why.
I don't know what else makes sense.
But this is my thing, is I don't get it.
Yeah,
I don't fucking get it. And now you take this guy who I look at as the reason why this show is as good as it is.
Absolutely.
Because when you're that involved at that many levels, You have to have somebody who watched all this shit and knows all this shit and is going through and doing all the stuff to make sure that everything lines up properly. And then you fire him. And then I look at fucking She-Hulk and I look at fucking Moon Knight and I look at fucking Blade, two of which this guy also worked on before being fired by Marvel. What do, Marvel? You set something up, you get it to the 90-yard line, you say, good enough, we're going to bring in somebody else to finish it, and then it's shit.
Yeah.
This happens every fucking time. And all I can see when I look at this is it's gonna happen again.
Yeah.
They're gonna do it again. They're gonna fire the guy that made the thing, that had the hot hand, and bring in some other idiot who doesn't care and doesn't have the wealth of knowledge or experience with this or interest. Like, this is a genuine love kind of thing.
Yeah.
That is not necessarily something that you're going to get with
this
the next
This is going to be
guy.
another one of those MCU, oh, well, we told them, don't worry about the source material, just do your own thing.
Yeah.
That's what this is going to
turn
into.
I am just sitting here like, I'm so glad X-Men 97 was good. I don't know if X-Men 98 is going to be good.
Listen,
I just don't know.
I'm going to hold out hope just because, as of right now, this has been the most popular Marvel property that's come out in years.
In years.
So, I'm hoping they realize it and understand that they can't fuck this up.
They got to bring him back.
Because this and potentially Deadpool, if they don't screw it up, are what's going to resurrect the MCU.
Yeah.
And it's like, don't fuck either of them up, because if you do, that could be the death nail. Like, this whole thing of them saying, we're going to only release 2 movies and 3 shows a year to not oversaturate, that's too much
That's still too much. I was looking at a timeline, and it was just through 2026, and it had 8 or 9 properties on it.
Yeah.
It's too much, guys.
It's still too much.
You're still pumping out too much product.
Yes.
And it's bad. It's bad product because you're pumping out too much of it, and you don't care.
Yes.
You openly, fragrantly don't
give a
care.
shit.
You talk all the time about how you don't care. Like, you're proud of it. I don't understand this, man. So you finally have something that is hardcore for fans, that goes straight for fans and is really dedicated to them, and the first thing you do is fire the guy who made it.
Yeah.
What the fuck?
I don't know.
What the fuck are we doing?
And not telling us why.
And that's the
big
thing. If you fire him and there's a reason,
you gotta
fine.
tell us why.
If you just fire him and you don't give a reason, then we start coming up with other things that he might be, that might have been the reason for it. But the thing is that when the internet sleuths through this guy's backstory, they don't find anything that's worthy of being fired over. Yeah. So I'm just left being like, so this is, in the much more likely, Disney doing something for no reason, maybe as a money-saving opportunity or to maintain some level of control or a seniority issue or something, but that is so much more in vogue with Disney than them taking a political stance to fire somebody.
This is the thing. I would have more faith in this decision if this happened during like the first 2 phases of the MCU. But in its current state in this happening, they just
did this with Daredevil. They just did this with Daredevil. And Daredevil didn't even live long enough to get on TV before they did this. And it's She-Hulk. It's Moon Knight. It's fucking Loki. Falcon Winter Soldier. There's just so many moments where you're like, God damn it. If you would just stop and your headlong progress for 5
and
fucking
so many of them, like
minutes.
Moon Knight, they were so close to sticking the landing on that show.
Yeah.
And then they had to do the kaiju fight at the end. And you're like, fuck, dude.
Yeah.
You were so close.
You were so close. And
Oscar Isaac was killing it. He was doing awesome. And then you got a fucking...
And then you broke all your own rules. You set up all these rules, and then you broke all of them.
Just for a big
just
CGI
for a thing.
fight.
Just for a thing.
It's fucking...
Or in the case of She-Hulk, just for a joke.
Oh, the fucking Daredevil Walk of Shame. I will never fucking forgive that as long as I live.
I'm thinking about the scene where John Bass turns into Mini-Hulk.
Oh, yeah, that's stupid.
And for some reason, Abomination is now a villain again, even though he's been working really hard to get back on the clean life. And then they're like, oh, but it's just a joke. And then we go to the Fast and Furious cookout, and Scar's here. Hey! This sucks, guys. I want you all to know that this sucks.
That whole thing was dead to me. Same as you when they fucked up the Wrecking Crew. And then the final nail in the coffin was the Daredevil Walk of Shame. And then everything after that, I didn't even give a fuck.
I'm still angry that they did Leapfrog so well.
Yes,
like you did Leapfrog so well, and you did Porcupine, and I'm supposed to hang my hat on these things and just ignore everything else? No!
Yeah.
Kudos. Gold star. But no!
That is a perfect way to end episode 139, everyone. This was a hell of an episode. I really enjoyed this. This was one of the more animated ones we've had in quite a long time.
I'm warm.
Well, I'm happy we have these microphones that you have, because typically this would have been hitting the table and dropping the cord out.
We have to reset everything.
Homecoming
yeah. We have to reset every 5 seconds.
Oh my god. So folks, this is episode 139. If you enjoyed what you heard here, trust me, there are plenty more episodes just like this. So please go back and listen to our back catalog. Make sure you come back next week to listen to what we got to say, because we are going to be talking about Invincible Season 2 next week. We got the whole season.
We have the whole season
to go
now.
over. So we got a lot to talk about. If once again, if you want to know more about us, if you go to nerdpodgen.com, there's links for Al, there's links for me, there's links for everybody. Who does our artwork, sir?
Our art is done by Kortney Howell.
And our music.
Our theme song is by Brendan Williams and James Connally.
And they're all great.
They're all amazing. I'm Alfred Jutsam.
I'm
You're
Steve Taylor.
And until next week, we will be flying high on our own petard. Yeah, right? Have a great week, friends and enemies.
Peace.